Okay, so good evening. Welcome to a new year of open Aaron meetings. This marks this is the beginning of our 31st year of open Aaron meetings. And we used to be in the living room, and here we are in this beautiful office room. So, welcome to all online. And just a minute, I need to check in with that. Before Aaron incorporates. I know all of you out there have been thinking, as I have today, of the date. And the pain that we've been through in this past almost 20 years. A whole new place in many of our lives. Learning to feel more vulnerable in the world. For many of us, it felt like they out there are vulnerable, but we're not. But of course we are. And it's been 2 decades of increasing violence and terrorism. The destruction of the environment. So many changes that we've had to make space for in our hearts. So Aaron has been talking to me for the last week about what he needs to talk about tonight. I will let him talk about it, not me. But I'd like to invite us all to just take 1 minute to literally hold not only the victims of 9/11/2001, but all victims of violence everywhere in the world. To hold these in our hearts. Our prayers for all of these people, all of these places. And to remember our commitment to help co-create a world in which such violence becomes unthinkable. How do we do that? What is the violence that each of us may be carrying in our own hearts? My blessings and love to you all. I am Aaron. The dog likes to roll up his bed and make himself comfortable. We're laughing at him. All sentient beings want comfort. All sentient beings want to avoid discomfort, pain, fear, loss, shame. This teaching is an old one called the worldly dharmas. What we learn from pleasure and pain, gain and loss, praise and blame, fame and disrepute. The thing is, if you have one in a flesh, you're going to have the other. If you have the other, you're going to go back to the first one. You cannot hold on to pleasure or avoid pain. You cannot hold on to joy and avoid sorrow. gain and avoid loss. People will love you, and then in the flesh they'll be angry at you. You are not incarnate to attempt to live a life of 100% pleasure and joy, comfort, gain. It's very pleasant when you have these things, but this is not the reason for your incarnation. You are incarnate to learn and to practice love, regardless of what is happening in your life. The good news is that you don't have to go out and get to that love and find a place to store it. You are inherently, I don't want to say just loving, but of the essence of loving kindness. The core of you is that which has the potential to be open and connected, not armored, but deeply interconnected, and to live from that interconnection. We have to take it a step further. That interconnection is not just about those in the room with you, or those in your community that you love. It's also about the terrorists. It's also about those who drove planes into buildings and killed so many people. They're a part of you too, and you are part of them. Every time you practice heat, you are sending out an energy of heat into the world. Every time you practice fear, deepening in the fear's stories, you are sending out an energy of fear into the world. Of course, this does not mean that you can say, no more fear, no more hate. If these arise within you, they have arisen because the conditions for them have not yet been purified. Saying no does not purify the conditions. It only adds to them. How do you come back to a place where you recognize your inherent loving kindness and compassion, your profound wisdom, and begin to live from that place? This, of course, is what I have been teaching for 30 years. Next week, we will start the class, Awakened Heart, based on the book that I channeled in 1992, perhaps. And it's precisely this teaching, that the awakened heart is the core of your being, and how to learn to live from that awakened heart. A gentle plug for the class, there is still space. If you're interested, please register. We would love to have you with us. We still do have space, live and on Zoom. So many of you have come to me in the past year saying, Aaron, what do we do about this? What do we do about the shootings in public places? What do we do about the environment and species that are becoming extinct? Glaciers that are melting. What do we do about the turmoil in the world? What do we do about the government figures that push anger and hatred? Not just in this country, but worldwide. A little bit of history that you have heard from me before. You did not come into the incarnation for comfort or convenience. You came to learn. And you came to use that learning, that remembering who you are, to help shift this heavy density earth into a higher vibration of love. If you walk into a room and everybody is arguing, imagine this scene. Imagine you have walked into this room with me and found people almost ready to have fist fights. Not only disagreeing with each other, but fiercely angry. That the other does not seem to be willing to hear or to agree. Now we have two choices. We can walk into this room and say, excuse my language, all of you shut up, and yell. I might get people's attention for a moment that way, and then they'll simply pick up and continue their argument with me. What if we walk into the room and just find a chair, take a chair and sit in the middle? What if there are a half dozen of us and we all just walk in and sit? What if we begin to chant? Vita Karuna, excuse my voice, Mudita Upeka, love and kindness, compassion, and so forth. Or we sit in silence. Or we sing. We hum some, maybe the Moonlight Sonata. Da 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 da. Again, I can't sing it on tune. But what if we just come in and are present, bringing some song in or silence, and just sit? Well, I imagine somebody's going to walk up to me and say, what are you doing? And I'm going to say back to him or her, I'm just sitting here, just holding a space. There's so much anger in the room, I just want to bring some peacefulness into it. Would you like to sit and join me? Some people will walk off in a huff. You don't get it. You have to be angry. Others might sit and join me. Each person invited to find the place of peace within themselves and hold that space. Now, what if we do that literally as a world? I'm thinking here of the election that will take place in a little over a year. There's sure to be a lot of turmoil about that election. You can get into arguments with your neighbors, your people at the next desk at work, and so forth. This candidate, that candidate. Or you can reflect and share your reflection. May the candidate who can best support us to bring peace to the world, to help restore the environment, to help end needless murders. Make that candidate to win. Well, which candidate do you mean? I'm not sure yet, but I know that if I hold that intention, it will become clear. Right now, it may not be clear, but if I hold the intention that the candidate who can most bring forth peace, who can help restore the Earth's environment, who can help people learn to hear each other, if enough of us invite that candidate who may not even yet be on the stage, that candidate can come forth. This is the whole process of co-creation. If you co-create with fear and anger, you create fear and anger. If you co-create with the intention for the highest good, even without knowing exactly what that will look like, your whole energy field invites that highest good to express itself. And who knows what candidates will step forth. And everybody will look and say, not everybody, all those who hold the intention for the highest good will look and say, here is someone we can trust. Here is someone who understands. And others will say no, because they're afraid of this candidate. They recognize the potential in this candidate to begin to resolve all the negativity. And some people want to feed off that negativity, but they don't want a candidate who will resolve it. People have been speaking to me for many months about the environment, seeing what they fear is a terrible downhill spiral. And we don't seem to be paying attention. We don't seem to be fixing the environment. I want to be very clear. To fix and to attend to are two very different things. When we try to fix something, we do it from a place of fear and contraction. Imagine the situation. You are sitting perhaps in a park, sitting on a park bench. There are a lot of people around. There are cars going down a road through the middle of the park, going a bit fast. And suddenly you see out of the corner of your eye a toddler rushing off into the street. Do you contract? And you imagine observing that toddler without contracting. This is fear. Obviously, to simply sit and pray for the toddler is not going to change things in that moment, as the toddler is going that way and the car is going this way. If you are the closest, you may need to run fast and grab the dog. The question, though, was what grabs the toddler, fear or love? If you grab through fear and forget the love, you may save this toddler, but you don't change any of the energy around the event. People can become hyper vigilant. Watch the toddlers. Be careful. Yes, watch the toddlers. Are they then going to start tying up all the toddlers or putting them behind 6-foot fences? How do you watch a toddler? By walking with the toddler, holding his or her hand, reminding them when they come to a street to pause. How do you change the situation with the Earth's environment? By running after that which is rolling toward destruction, screaming. Or by pausing and figuratively taking the head of that which is doing the damage. How many cars, how many televisions, how many lights, and I'm not one to speak here. We've got 3 screens here in this room and a room full of lights. But they're for a specific purpose, and then we turn them off. When we begin to contemplate what it means to take care of, we see that we can take care from a place of true equanimity and love. And that unless we do that, we're only adding to the damage. Learning how not to add to the damage is the core of each of your meditation practices. You constantly are given catalysts, figuratively, the toddler running into the street, the airplane about to smack into a building, or perhaps stepping it back some hours, the airplane with the terrorists about to board it, with a plan to smack it into a building. Where did it start? Where did the hatred start? In the beautiful words of the Dhammapada, hatred never resolves hatred. Only love resolves hatred. So what do we do about the terrorists? What do we do about the deterioration of Earth's environment? Certainly it takes hard work. You cannot just sit and meditate it into health again. So each of you will find those causes that call most to you and work with the environment, with politics, with social affairs in myriad ways. The question is not where you will work, but how you will work. As long as you bring fear and this idea, I must fix it, you simply are adding to the deterioration. When you can truly envision the innate perfection, all the voices of the earth singing together. The earth knowing itself as one, the environment being healed, coming back into its innate perfection. We must do both. I talk about this a lot. The need to open into ultimate reality and see the innate perfection, but not to use ultimate reality as a hiding place. rather to rest in ultimate reality until the deep knowing comes. This earth is at some level already whole. Around the world, all the hatred is at some level resolved, and so forth with different issues. Resting in ultimate reality. And then we do not turn our back on ultimate reality and run into relative reality screaming, fix it, fix it, fix it. Because we've just seen that it's already whole. Instead, we stay connected to the ultimate and reach our hands in to the place where the environment is deteriorating. Reach our hands into the place where people can take a machine gun and kill so many people. Or smash a plane into a building. The question is, how do we open the door to the healing? Knowing that healing is both a process and also already is. Whoever healed is already there. How do we touch both? Let's go back to our toddler running into the street. First of all, if you're sitting awake and present, you will have seen the toddler long before she reached the street. It's not a crisis yet. You notice the toddler running toward the street. You notice that nobody notices the toddler but you. And you get up and walk over and take her hand. And then you just talk to her and stand there for a minute. Certainly a parent is going to see you standing there and comes up saying, "What are you doing with my child?" I'm keeping her from running into the street. Here she is. Where have we all been? Well, the earth environment was running into the street, so to speak. Was your back turned? Were you in denial? And then the fear comes, fix it, fix it. Well, let's step back. Instead of fixing it, based in fear and contraction, can we all stop right now and deeply envision this gift, this Eden of earth that we have been given? There is much destruction, yes, but also when I look out the window, I see flowers and sky and grass, trees. I see some blight in one tree. I see many healthy trees. There is the movement. Fix the blighted tree. How about thank the healthy trees? Thank you. You are so beautiful. Thank you. Thank you. All over the earth, so many healthy trees. Thank you. Thank you. Can you feel the difference when after that thank you, you then turn to the blighted tree and say, what do you need? How can I help you, bring you back to good health? No, it's no longer a matter of just a tree here and there. This is a huge issue at this point. And there needs to be a lot of work to turn the world back around to inviting the good health of the earth. It is not too late. If you continue to ignore it, it will become too late. If you panic and think it's too late, you're only adding to the fear, contraction, and negativity. For each moment of concern about an environmental issue, can you find an equivalent place where things are healthy and say thank you, and then rest in that energy, that gratitude, that joy, and ask yourself from there, then what next? How do we attend to the melting glaciers, the overheating of the earth, the raising of the waters, the seas? How do we attend to this with deep concern and presence, but with love rather than fear? Just as the Dhammapada lines I recited recently, hatred never resolved hatred. We could also say fear never resolved fear. Only love resolves fear. Contraction never resolves contraction. Only loving kindness resolves contraction. Further destruction, it never resolves destruction. Only love resolves destruction. But it's up to you. And you all have the habitual tendencies of being human. When something is frightening, they contract and don't want to fix, and sometimes to attack. This is why for 30 years I have been teaching you Vipassana, mindfulness meditation. To watch these contractions arise and not get caught in the stories, so that that which is wise, loving, and compassionate in you can attend to the catalyst for the contraction, bringing into play that wisdom, that compassion, that love. I'm addressing many issues here because the solution is the same. The deterioration of the environment, the deterioration of, let's call it, loving kindness on the earth, the ability to hear each other, to work together toward a common goal of healthy, loving humankind. Have you wondered why there are so many more mass killings these days? It was unheard of 50 years ago, occasionally, and yes, very brutally in a place like Nazi Germany. That was certainly a mass killing. But this was in a place where people knew this was happening, and you did not expect to walk out your door and down to the market and be shot. So many of you experience the catalyst of lack of safety for yourselves, those around you. Contract with fear, armor yourselves, and cease to allow your loving energy to go out into the world. I want to share a story of a man that I knew. The family the family were at a picnic, cooking food over a barbecue. An expanded family, a brother and his wife and children, sister and her husband and children, the parents. There were various picnic tables. A man rode up on his bicycle. The people at the next table were cooking. The man came up and parked his bicycle there between the table with the food to be cooked and the grill. The man who was grilling turned around and said, "You're blocking my food." The man on the bicycle, who almost immediately it became clear he was somewhat inebriated. And he said, "I can put my bike wherever I want." The man whose food was being blocked said, "No, you can't. That's my table." The man who had left the bicycle picked up a big knife from the table, the knife that was being used to cut the meat, and held it up and said, "I can put my bike wherever I want." The children, 6 young children, all watching, and others from other tables, all watching. Fear. What's going to happen? Is he going to kill someone? Is the man with the food going to attack him? What's going to happen? And this was 40 years ago, perhaps, 30, 40 years ago. So not in the days when we were watching people simply machine gun down other people. The man at the next table, I'll give you, he was a very big man, 6'6", big. But he was also deeply loving, very wise. And he did not get caught in the story. The man was standing there with the knife in his hand. Our friend at the next table simply walked up behind him and grabbed his hand and said, "You don't want to do that." And held out his other hand, one hand holding, one hand out. "Give me the knife." He didn't do it with fear or with anger. As I acknowledged, if he had been 5 feet tall rather than 6'6", it might have been harder. But at some level, he knew that whatever his size, his power lay not in his size, but in his loving heart, in his unwillingness to get caught in the story of fear. The man dropped the knife into his hand. And then our friend simply said, "Come, sit down at my table and have a Coke." The man who had dropped the knife said, "My bike." Our friend said, "I'll take care of your bike. You sit down. I'm making hamburgers. Would you like a hamburger? Just sit for a bit." Okay. So the man sat, and our friend sat beside him. The man who had held the knife was upset about something totally unrelated to this present situation. And our friend heard him for a few minutes. And then he said to him, "No matter what, you still can't take a knife against innocent people and all these children. I know you don't want to do that. Have a hamburger." Talking to him, connecting with him in a very loving and human way. And then he handed him his bike a few minutes later and said, Maybe best if you leave now. Didn't push him away. Are you ready to leave? And the man got on his bike and rode off. Let's expand that vision to an entire world. Whether the knife is the threats to the environment, whether it's the terrorists about to aim a plane at some building and kill thousands of people, whether it's a terrorist with a machine gun, or simply a person who is mentally unstable, about to fire at a crowd. Gandhi demonstrated a principle called satyagraha, soul force. When Gandhi did his work, they did not march belligerently, but respectfully and with kindness, holding a deep love for each other being, a respect for each other being who might hold different opinions. They didn't say, you're wrong and we're right. They simply said, I am led to, even driven to speak my voice, speak my view. That this or that cannot be the way it is, or people will suffer. You don't have to accept my view. But morally, I feel I must state my view. It will be a violence to ask others to accept your view. The important thing is that they allow you to speak your view, and that you hear their view as well, even if you don't like it, because it is in this mutual hearing that there can begin to be change, positive change. I think those who are so unaware of how they are destroying the environment are still caught in a very basic level of consciousness, where the self is very much in the center. You cannot lift somebody out of that self-centered consciousness by scolding or shaming them. But with gentleness, you can help them to make a shift from me to us, the us being first just your immediate loved ones, and then maybe your larger family, your village, your country, and then the world. How do we help people out beyond me and them, us and them, and into truly living, knowing into the interconnection? You can't stamp your feet and yell at them to get them there. But those of you who are there, who truly perceive the present destruction of the earth, the destruction of many human values, and so forth, you can hold that vision. Gandhi's satyagraha, soul force. You can begin to know and trust the power of your vision, grounded in loving kindness and the highest good for all beings. And to steadfastly refuse to be pushed off that platform, that deep trust and knowing. to allow all of your words and all of your actions to come from that place of all beings, not me or my small group. That erroneous distinction is the ground for all the destruction that I see on the earth. How do we get past it? How do you get past it? Because each of you is still caught there to some degree. But with practice and deepening intention, you can move past it. The deep commitment for the highest good of the earth and all sentient beings. Let this be your commitment. With that commitment, it is not too late. But I don't know how long I can make that statement if you don't offer that commitment. Because eventually you're going to run out of time to invite the possible shift back into homes. That is not a threat, it's just a statement of fact. The most positive side of this for me is how many of you took a birth on this planet at this time. Not just you in this country, but worldwide, to help bring forth this shift into all of us consciousness, not a me versus them consciousness. So many of you took incarnation with the deep intention to support the possible healing of this earth. This is where this earth has been going for a long, long time. There have always been troubles on the earth. There's always been selfishness and self-centeredness. But the earth does have the capacity to move past that and truly to be an inspiration throughout the universe of a planet that is grounded in us and in loving kindness for the highest good of all beings and harm to none. Are you willing to commit through your own personal practice to make this a possibility a reality? It really is up to you. I'm deeply engaged in this conversation. I could talk for many more hours. It saddens me to see how much suffering there is on earth that could be so easily prevented. What are you each going to commit to do about it? From a place of non-contraction and love. I see my dear friend George on the screen here. And my talk tonight, in some large way, originated with a conversation with George last month about his environmental concerns and more. So I told George what I was going to talk about and also invited him to speak, since Zoom allows us this possibility, and to share his thoughts and concerns. And George, I'm happy to get into some kind of conversation with you on this, if that's appropriate.
Okay. I wrote Barb a letter, actually an open letter to spiritual teachers and ministries, wherever they may be, asking them to consider taking a leadership role in the world about the climate situation. I basically claim that our political and other institutions have failed us, and that Mother Earth is now taking over with self-reinforcing dynamics, where I fear the worst for life on the planet and humankind. And I have little faith that our existing institutions are up to what must be done now. And so I wrote this letter calling the spiritual teachers and leaders in the world, asking them to, through nonviolent direct action, to engage now. I've had visions of the future. I have children and grandchildren. And so coming to the point of Aaron's discussion tonight, in terms of fear versus love, the major problem that I've been living with is overwhelming grief. Not the loss of just a loved one, but the loss of all the loved ones, of all the others, of all the children, for all time. The climate situation is teetering on a point where we could go into a runaway global warming situation, which is already unfolding, and wind up with a dead planet. And there are chances of that already, of it happening. If we knew that a plane had a 10% chance of crashing, we would never fly on it. But we're in that percentage now for this planet, this whole planet crashing. And we are putting all of life on that plane. And it's an existential issue. And what I have seen in terms of my own visions and is so horrifying. And that, so my issue of what I'm carrying is more about the overwhelming sense of grief that I have. It's a little different than the contraction or love. I think that grief comes out of love, comes out of my connection. But it's just overwhelming. And that has been my challenge for the last 3 or 4 months. It's not an intellectual understanding. It is a deeply emotional, intuitive understanding of what humanity is now confronted with after 50 years since the first Earth Day, with little to nothing done. I'm sorry for sharing such a burdensome claim. I feel bad about that, and I wish nobody else to have to carry what I'm carrying, what I know. So I'm sorry for that, but that is what is alive in me.
I hear you, George, and respect your concerns. Can you see that grief, while it comes from love, also comes from fear? Fear and love are not dualistic. They are part of each other. It's very easy to get caught up in the fear-based side of grief. It's also possible to get caught up in a denial of the fear and just say it's based in love. It really comes back to the same teaching. And this same old story. Dharmakaya, the heavenly realm on one side. The Manakaya, the everyday world on the other. The everyday world being one of construction and destruction. Everything breaking open and falling apart and dying away. The Dharmakaya being a place of stability where nothing ever dies. The unconditioned. As a human, the work is to find that bridge between staying connected so that instead of just grief, you can deeply feel the gratitude for the earth, for its ability to survive. If you go and look where I'm told at Mount St. Helens, there's enormous growth coming out. Just one small example. The ability of the earth to come back to life again, the ability of life to come back. I'm not saying we can't destroy that to the degree that it simply becomes impossible for regrowth to happen. But if we get lost in fear and the stories of grief and fear, we forget what is so positive. We cannot hide in the positive. We cannot hide in the gratitude. But how do you find the balance? How do you address the present true disasters on the earth from a place of inviting the wholeness of the earth to reemerge and directly confronting that which is doing the damage? Yes. We can't just say, let's ignore it and maybe it will go away. It has to be addressed. This means inviting in the next election, the government that will really go deep in addressing the concerns of the earth. And asking that other countries do the same. It means placing the environment very high in your list of priorities. It means taking personal care to live with as much environmental consciousness as possible. But not hating others who don't. Simply seeing they're not yet ready. They're not yet mature enough. And perhaps the only way to make them mature enough, the only ways are, one, your own holding that space energetically, and two, electing the government officials who will enforce it until others are mature enough to enforce it for themselves. But fear and the grief built on fear is not going to bring you there. And I am not saying don't grieve and don't feel fear, but look at the fear, look at the grief, and find that which is loving and strong and courageous. But when the part of you that knows the ability for reawakening the ever-perfect, this is just my view, George. I am not saying I'm right. I'm just expressing a view. Have you any added thoughts? I don't want to put you on the spot. I did appreciate your letter. And as you know, it was the brand for tonight's talk. If you fall and break your leg and it's excruciating pain, your whole energy field will contract. So I'm not talking about that kind of pain. If the person you love most in the world is struck by lightning, you're going to contract. Contraction is just contraction. It is the stories built on the contraction that keep it spinning. Contract. Here, and he raises up. I am hitting Barbara's leg below the knee, and the leg pops up. Contraction. Oh, contraction. Breathing in, I am aware of the contraction. Breathing out, I hold space for the contraction. And gradually, the contraction does resolve. We do not say either or contraction or not contraction. Right there with contraction, where is the uncontracted? Am I clinging to the contraction in some way? Am I using it as an armor in some way or a self-identity? Without trying to get rid of the contraction, can I open it to the uncontracted? And give it equal time.
Yes.
Let me say one thing related to this one first. Barbara, as some of you know, is healing from some bad injuries, broken ribs and a torn hip tendon. She has been in a lot of pain through the summer. The physical therapist on Monday said, "You're ready to start walking more. Try to get on a treadmill and walk, even if only for 2 minutes. Walk as long as you can without it being agonized. Don't push it too hard." So she walked for about 5 minutes, and she was starting to feel pain. I need to stop. And I said to her very quietly, "What is causing the pain? Your fear of the pain or the direct physical sensation of discomfort?" She thought, maybe it's my dislike of the pain, my fear of the pain. I said, "Just slow down. Slow the treadmill to its lowest speed. Breathe deep into the belly and walk for just another 20 seconds and see how the pain is. Breathe." So she breathed and she walked. And after a minute, she said, "Well, maybe I should stop it now." I said, "Is there bad pain again?" "No, but there might be." Walk some more. So in the end, she walked for 10 minutes on the street. And then she stopped simply because wisdom told her that's enough for the day. But much of the humor that I've seen is offered in a way of intention to be humorous, to move away from contraction and fix it and anger and into the spaciousness of the absurdity. I'm thinking here of the picture I saw of the president's marking on the map of the hurricane going into Alabama. And the response on the internet was truly funny. Various pictures, perhaps some of you saw them. His wife, the drawing of his wife like this, and the drawing of her hand holding his. And, well, there was one far more personal response of his personal sexual organ, drawing saying, "See, I really am big enough." Laughter is healing. As long as it's not aimed at, laughter is healing as long as it's not meant to harm, as long as it's not intended to drive a knife into. And I think you can all feel the difference. Sometimes, such as in those drawings, there were a number of them on the internet around this marker. One has to take it into the absurdity and just laugh at it to release some of the tension around it. But then one comes back, can one then feel compassion? Can one look at the president who drew this map and see that he was drawn to this because of his own personal psychology? And have compassion for him because he would not have drawn this if he were not feeling pain. We don't have to figure out what caused the pain, only to let it open us into compassion. So humor in this way can become a ground for compassion. No. Oh, good. The world doesn't want you to suffer for it. The world wants you to invite healing and release the suffering. Every human being wants freedom from suffering. And if it wants it for itself at some level, at least it wants it for all beings. I understand that there are some beings who are deeply distorted in that they find joy in other suffering. But we're not talking about a psychological aberration like that. Suffering in itself is just suffering. Something we hope will be released. On the other hand, the world rejoices in joy and gratitude. That energy of love, of gratitude, of joy, this nourishes everything, where suffering is like a drought and dries everything up. I'm relating to that last question. If you have a garden, you water your garden every day. But maybe you think to yourself, what if I stop watering the garden for a week so it will appreciate the water when I give it back? Would you choose to do that? The earth, the plants, they just want the water. In the same way, everything wants your joy and open-heartedness and love. That's what it stimulates it to thrive. New life forms will then take place on Earth. Life forms that can exist on a seriously changed Earth. However, it may no longer be suitable for mammal life. It may not. The question is not whether one feels fear about it or not, but whether one feels some degree of regret that what was such a beautiful planet is slowly being destroyed because of greed and fear and misunderstanding. And whether there is enough intention to try to turn it around before it's too late to turn it around and reclaim the Eden that this earth was intended to be. I don't think you're in denial. However, it has to, all the different sides of it have to come together. George spoke of the grief. And I spoke, in return, I spoke of finding not only love as a basis for grief, but fear as a basis for grief, and acknowledging that. For some of you who may have had very profound experiences of the unconditioned and understood that nothing can ever be lost, that everything is impermanent on the relative plane, and also that nothing can ever be lost, there can also be a subtle, it doesn't matter, that comes up, not just about the environment, but about everything. This is also partly fear, and it's important to attend to that, to observe it and attend. I am not saying this is what you're experiencing, Catherine. I'm simply saying that for some of you, this will be true. I see the big picture. I know that even if the earth is destroyed, the essence of you, each of you, will not be destroyed. But you lose a beautiful place on which to learn. Why would you want to do that? If your home gets dirty, you clean it. You don't burn it down and say, let's find a different home. But no, I don't think you're in denial, Catherine. Only asking you to look deeply at the bigger picture, the part of you that perhaps is so committed to non-attachment and sees the suffering in attachment, that there's a subtle fear, what if I become attached to this earth and create more suffering? Just consider that possibility. I'm not saying that's true, I'm just saying reflect and see if there's any. Each of you have different karmic tendencies, and it's helpful to get to know your karmic tendencies and watch them. That's how you learn. First, I cannot tell you how you should respond. There are simply different choices. If you do not shoot the shooter, you are partly co-responsible for all the people that shooter shoots. If you do shoot the shooter, you are partly responsible for that shooter's death. In either way, you are karmically responsible, but the karma is different. If you choose to shoot the shooter from a place of the deepest compassion, knowing I accept my karmic responsibility here, but I cannot allow this person to take over and kill so many people. So with the deepest love and wishes for this being's well-being, I pull the trigger. If I am fooling myself in any way and have any malice here, I will karmically experience the results of that malice. And then you pull the trigger. Or you don't pull the trigger, and you acknowledge, I am responsible for all the lives this person has taken. If there is any fear in that choice, I will experience the karma of that choice. And you accept that? I can tell you what I would do, but that does not mean it's what you should do. I would shoot. But I would shoot because I know, number one, that I am capable of shooting without hatred. And number two, that I deeply carry the belief is not the right word. Deep in my heart, there is a strong intention not to let any being violate another being's free will. And if in carrying out that intention, I must violate somebody's free will, I accept responsibility for that. But I've learned deeply to never use my power to do harm. So at some level, I am using this shot to stop the shooter because there's very bad karma in killing lots of people. In some ways, I'm trying to help this person, and that's not just a walk around. This is something that I have found to be true. But nobody can tell you what you should do in such a situation. As we end here, I would like to invite everyone present tonight to reflect deeply on the world on which you would like to live, to offer gratitude for the ways this world fulfills that hope, to look deeply in yourselves and ask yourself, is there any way that I am getting in the way of fulfilling that hope for the world and for all the sentient beings on the world? In what ways can I pay more attention to live my life more fully consistent with my deepest ideals and hopes? Do this as a mindfulness exercise daily. Do it when you're brushing your teeth and leave the water run. Whoops. Do I want to waste water? Do it when you turn on your car to do an errand that could be done along with another errand the next day. Do I need to use this gasoline? Do it when a political figure says or does something that irritates you so that anger comes up and you want to smash into this person, to shake them. Pause, breathe, and feel the possibility of compassion. You do not have to agree with them to experience compassion. In these simple ways, bring yourselves closer to living your highest intentions. And please do not judge others who are not yet capable of living in that way, but be a non-self-righteous model for them. Thank you for being with me tonight. I hope you will join us again next month. That's all. My blessings and love to you all.